Hello and welcome to UE4 Tips for You. So in this tutorial we will set up the hang to jump right tracing functionality, right upward and upward, and similarly in hang to jump left, left upward and upward tracing. So in all these regions, if there is some valid spot that our character can grab, our traces can detect that point as well. So let's see the result over here. So here is the complex geometry over here. So basically this is the hole in the wall, let's say, and our character can detect that hole as well. So if I move that object like so, our character can properly detect that point in every region like so. Similarly in our upward side like so, and at the left side like so. So let's check the result over here. So our character can detect all of these points that can grabbable. You guys can see in this video. If I move the object like so, my traces works properly and detect that point as well. So in this tutorial we will implement the proper tracing functionality, and in our next tutorials we will set up the proper hang to jump left and every direction functionality. So let's get started, guys. Hello and welcome. So in our previous tutorials we have set up this functionality to our character, that our character can move right and left with proper hands IK. So now let's open our character blueprint and go to IK hands tracing first and disable the debug traces. So here I have disabled all my IK related traces. As you can see, when I reach at the end of the ledge, my character stop moving forward, but animation not stops. It continuously perform the animation. So let's first fix the animation related issue. So here in our hang to move right function, and in the first sphere trace here, if the trace hits something, then can hang to move right. Will be true, and if trace didn't hit anything, then can hang to move right will be false. Here I'll disconnect the node and then try again. So here you can see, when my character reach at the end of the ledge position, it stops moving and also it stops its animation. Now let's open our animation blueprint and adjust the duration for blending to 0.3 and 0.35, 0.35. think it's fine here. My character stops moving and also stops animation. So now let's open our character blueprint and create a new function for hang to jump right tracing. I'm gonna create a new function over here and call this hang to jump right tracing, like so. And in the function I'm gonna use for loop. The first index will be my 1 and the last index I'm gonna promote this to a variable, promote local variable, and call this number of up traces check. So I am gonna use for loop because I'm gonna check 10 times. I'm gonna sphere trace 10 times so that I can properly detect my grabbable location. So in the loop body I'm gonna sphere trace by channel, and the start location will be my get actor location. Get actor location. I'm gonna add some constant and split the struct pin. I'm gonna add in the z-axis. So let's grab our index value from for loop and multiply it with some constant like 10. So each time my for loop starts, there is 10 units added in my z location, actor z location, and I'm gonna set it to my start location, and for my end location I'm gonna get actor rotation, forward vector, and multiply it with some constant. This constant will be our trace length, and I'm gonna add it to here, and this will be our end location. So trace radius will be 10 and draw debug type to for one frame. So here I have set up my function. First I'm gonna enter into for loop. First index will be 1 and the number of traces checked will be my 10. I'm gonna fire this loop 10 times and each time 10 units added in my z location. Now I'm gonna call this function in my hang to move right. So when my hang to move right trace not hit anything here, when in first trace didn't hit anything, like so, can hang to move right will be false and my character will be in can hang to jump right state. And I'm gonna call this function over here like so. Now let's check the result. So here you can see when my character reach at the end position, there are 10 traces. There are 10 traces activates at my actor location. So the trace location is not perfect because it starts at the hit location from our character. So for fixing its proper location, I'm gonna hang to jump right open my function, and from get actor rotation I'm gonna get my forward vector. Instead of forward, I'm gonna get my right vector like so, and multiply it with some constant like 30 units to the right of character. My trace will be start at 30 units right from my character location. So in the start location, I'm gonna add this 30 units in my start location and set this to my start location, and also set this over here like so. So now let's check the result. I think 30 will not fine. I'm gonna add 50 like so. So here you can see my traces are working at 50 units right from my character. So if there is some object hit any of the trace, I'm gonna break my loop over there, and it means we have some valid point for our hang to jump right. So instead of for loop, I'm gonna use for loop with break. First index 1, last will be our number of traces, and set it over here like so. So if our trace before adding the break loop behavior, I'm gonna add another loop that will be my how many traces I'm gonna use for my right side. So let's say I'm gonna use for loop with break, and start will be my 1, and this last index will be my number of right traces check. So how many traces I'm gonna use for my right side, this loop will be determined by that condition. So I'm gonna grab my index of first loop and multiply it with 10 units like so, and in my get right vector, I'm gonna add this to my start location over here like so. So now let's check the result. First set the number of right traces to 5, let's say, and check the result like so. Traces are not working properly. Because instead of adding here, I'm gonna get right vector and multiply it with this constant 10 units that will be from my first loop, and then I'm gonna add it over here like so. So here is my loop is properly set up. Now let's check the result. So here you guys can see I have my 5 traces in the right side and 10 traces in my upward side are working. So let's set the constant value to 15 like so. Here you can see, I think this will be fine. So in this region, if there is some valid point for my hand to jump right, then my character can jump. So I think this region is fine. You can change the region according to your need. For example, you can change the number of traces of right traces check to 10. Then your right side region is extended like so. And if you change the number of traces upward check from 10 to 15, then your upward traces increases like so. So I think upward traces 10 will be fine and right traces 5 will be fine. So if this trace hit something, then I'm gonna branch and break the hit result. I'm gonna use one of another sphere trace that will determine my Z location. This will give me my X and Y location, and the trace that I'm gonna use over here, and that will give my Z location. So in the impact point, I'm gonna add 20 units in the Z axis like so. Add it into start location, and from there I'm gonna subtract 25 units in Z axis and set it to in the end location, and the radius will be fine. So here you can see, if one of my traces hits something, then there is a valid trace that will from my upside to downward, up to downward. I'm gonna change the color like so, then check the result. So here you can see these two traces are from my up to down, and these are from my forward traces. So instead of 20, I'm gonna use 15 and 20 like so. So if my second trace hits something, then it's mean there is some valid point, there is some valid spot, or even a hole that I can grab. So if my trace hits something, then I'm gonna break my loop. So before breaking my loop, I'm gonna add another check that will determine if my trace didn't initially overlap something, because if my trace is initially overlapped, then it's mean I have not even a proper point for grabbing. And like so. If my trace initially overlap, then it's mean there is no some proper point for grabbing. I'm gonna set the second trace to 10, 5 units above and 10 units downward, so we can properly grab the minimum spores like so. So if there is some condition like here, I have some proper point for grabbing. So if my second trace initial overlap will be false, if trace first condition will be my if trace hit something, then second condition will be my if it's not initially overlaps, then I'm gonna break the loop over here like so. I'm gonna use a sequence, break this loop over here, and also break this loop. So here is my hang to jump right function is properly set up. If my trace hits something and if there is some valid point, then my loop breaks and it gave me proper location. I think it's not working. And it's not working because our second trace always gives the false result, because first set the radius to 5 units, because our first trace radius is 10 units and our second trace will use the radius to something lower than the first trace. I think 5 will be fine, and instead of adding 5 in my z-axis, I'm gonna add 10 units in my z-axis and subtract 10 units in my z-axis. So I have implement two changes, like first change the sphere radius to 5, and in the z-axis of second trace sphere trace I'm gonna add 10 units in z-axis and subtract 10 units in z-axis. So now let's check the result like so. So here you can see if my trace hits something, then all of my remaining traces are not working because I have my proper point for grabbing. Let's hide the first trace and debug our second trace only like so. So here you can see I have my proper point in this region which I can grab. I can even grab holes like so. So if everything is false, then all of my tracing are working, and if there is some valid point, then only the first traces will work and the second will not work because both loops are break. So I have here is set up my hang to jump right function properly. As you can see, this is my hang to jump right function is set up. So I'm gonna use the same functionality for my hang to jump left. So for hang to jump left, I'm gonna duplicate my hang to jump right function and call this hang to jump left tracing, and everything will be same, and instead of right vector I'm gonna use my left vector. So for right to left vector I'm gonna multiply it with 50 multiply it with -50 instead of 50 like so. I'm gonna change 50 to minus 50 and minus 15, positive 15 to minus 15, like so. So for hang to jump left tracing, I have just implement two changes here, minus 50 and minus 15, like so. And I'm gonna call this function in my hang to move left, where my trace didn't hit, where my first trace didn't hit anything. I'm gonna set can hang to move left true if my trace hit something, and can hang to move left false if my trace didn't hit something. So if my trace didn't hit something, then I'm gonna call my hang to jump left tracing function, like so. So let's check the result. Here you can see I have my both hang to jump left and jump right functional properly set up. So here is the region of my hang to jump left tracing, and if there is some object in this region, my character can grab that point, like so. So here I have set up hang to jump right and hang to jump left function. So there is only one function left, that will be our hang to jump upward tracing. So I think this is it for this tutorial, because it already took 25 minutes, and in the next video we will implement hang to jump upward tracing and hang to jump diagonally tracing, so that our character can properly grab every point in its reachable position. So I hope you guys like this video. Don't forget to subscribe my YouTube channel, and also you can support me on Patreon for making more content and videos. So till then, bye.